What's your sugar mama story? I was really drunk at a party. I was about to leave and I was pretty hungry. This girl I was talking to on Tinder lived like 2 streets over. I can't believe she actually did it. She left Pop-Tarts out on the front porch for me. Went out drinking with my cousin on a Thursday night and we ended up meeting a MILF at the bar he'd hooked up with before. It's closing time and he invites me over to her place to keep the party going. I was supposed to stay at his place, so I didn't really have anywhere else to go. At the end of the night, she made me a bed in her guest room. I woke up the next morning with a terrible hangover and people are rushing around and I'm like, WTF is all this noise? I emerge from the bedroom and sitting at the kitchen table is my cousin, the MILF, and her 2 high school age kids. Mind you, I'm 22 at the time and my cousin is 23. MILF packed us lunches while she made her kids lunches and sent us off with brown paper bags and Gatorades. The kids were less shocked than I was. I think they were used to it. She was divorced and lived in a massive house. Dr. MILF. Next morning she made me breakfast and cut my hair. I did once visit a guy who had a sugar mama, a friend of the girl I was dating at the time. He was this average looking 20-year-old stoner kid who was living in a nice house in the city. His sugar mama was paying for him to go to community college. 6 or so years ago I was just out of college in Southern California, living with my grandpa, and asked out a Chinese grad student after meeting her at work. On our second date, she picked me up in a shiny black Audi, said her parents leased it for her. We went to a Chinese restaurant. I had paid for food on our first date and just assumed I would keep on doing so, despite making $15 an hour at the time, because I'm a red-blooded, Korean, American man. So when she started ordering lobster, duck, and enough food to feed 8, I started getting a bit nervous. The check came and I reached for it, but she snatched it away, got out her wallet and pulled out 3 Benjamins like it was nothing. And when she did that, I couldn't help but catch a glimpse of the stack of crisp bills, all which seemed to have a similar pattern, W. Benjamin Franklin's bald head peeking out the top. She had to have had at least 2 G's in there. I don't like going to the bank so I just get it all at once, she said. I had way less in my name than she had in her wallet, LMAO. Anyway, she paid for the $200 plus meal and let me have the leftovers. Had my meals set for the next week. From then on we alternated paying for dates. My meals would be $sign or $sign on Yelp. Hers $sign plus. She eventually would pay for Disneyland tickets, Laker games, and some fantastic meals before 5 months later she graduated. Her student visa expired, and she went back to China. She was really down to earth too. Once we went to a spot near downtown and she street parked in Skid Row. I advised against it, motioning to the homeless encampments, but she said it was no big deal. Sure, her English was good enough to hold conversation, but once we were lying in bed and it was kind of a lull, and she said out of the blue, "I'm funnier in Chinese," which I thought was hilarious, but also sad. Maybe because of that, we didn't text much outside of planning our weekends. I sometimes wondered whether she had 2 or 3 boyfriends she was just cycling through, lol. She didn't have Facebook, only Weibo, or some other Chinese social media. I texted her a few years ago but the normally blue bubbles were now green. Still, we had a lot of fun and she helped get me through those post-grad broke ass blues. Hope she's doing alright. Ex constantly bought me food and would give me money if I wanted beer or weed, but would then leave the beer and weed knowing I would drink or smoke it all. She only ever came to my apartment for 6 and would then leave when I couldn't get it up again. Her mom would drop off 3-4 bags of groceries every week. She bought me my second car ever and paid for my college classes and helped me get my life on track really. It ended pretty quick when I told her I thought I was in love with her. My dad. He broke up with my mom and now lives with an 80-year-old. He's 50. She's rich and he's basically homeless. But he's handsome and looks good with her. She supplied his sugar addiction for years. And then she also supplied him money to chase me and my mom through the courts over custody. TLDR. 80 and 50 years old. Cougar fuels sugar addiction of my dad. I was seeing her for about 2 months. She was 10 years my senior. We worked together and there was always those certain looks throughout the year. She was going through a divorce, with well-to-do architect, and were previously bonded over depressive situations we were going through. It wasn't until I handed my resignation in and told the staff I was moving states did it kick off. She said we should go get a drink one night. Nothing happened. Then she invited me round to her place. 3 awesome kids. Anything I wanted booze-wise. Food, great cook. Meals and drinks out too. Very in shape, and we absolutely bonded very well in the bedroom too. It was almost perfect. Except for me having sneak out at the crack of dawn before the kids woke up. This continued for about 7 weeks. I had my car packed and ready to go, and we spent one last night together before I moved. We said our goodbyes and I drove off. Last I've heard from her, as per the arrangement, her request. It could have worked out, I felt. Miss Ya, NX. Met a 30-year-old widow on Xbox when I was 19. She said she played Xbox to pass the day because she was financially set for life when her husband passed and wanted to make some Xbox friends. We stopped playing more and more until I couldn't keep up because my controller and headset broke. She asked for my address, and after a week, I got a brand new controller and headset. I couldn't thank her enough and asked what I could do in return. To which she replied to just keep playing with her. Over the next few years, she occasionally buys me new games when they came out, and even a few collector's editions if I wanted them. Eventually, we drifted apart because I couldn't find time play with my school and work schedule. I still miss her and occasionally try and find her online again, but can't remember her gamer tag or Facebook. She will always be one of my best gaming buddies I've ever had. This happened in Tokyo around 5 or 6 years ago. Met a client at work when I was 26 or 27. She was 32 or 33. She was really cute, very smart and educated, and we got on very well together. She was a bit of a train geek. She liked riding trains. Fairly common in Japan but rare for a woman. She had a lot of cute quirks like that. She could tell you the make and model of every pantograph on every train in operation in Japan. Anyone who knows Japanese politics has heard her name before. I didn't know who she was when we first met, but my boss later on told me to treat her like a VIP at all times. Anyway, our work project wrapped up and we decided to go out for a bite at a nearby restaurant. She tells me she needs help preparing for an interview at a very famous company for a very unique role that they would essentially be creating just for her. I tell her I'd be happy to help her with it. I didn't have any ulterior motives. I genuinely liked her and wanted her to succeed. We met up again to do the interview prep, and one more final practice after that. She invited me to play darts with her after we'd finished, since she apparently enjoyed darts and I'd never played before. We went out to a darts bar in the early evening, and somehow we ended up playing a game where the loser of the game had to drink tequila shots. She mopped the floor with me, but we both started doing shots until well past the last trains home. Eventually we wound up going to an internet cafe to spend the rest of the night. But things progressed pretty quickly. She got touchy-feely and we decided to get out of there and go to a hotel together. And so began our relationship. She turned out to be richer than God. She would buy all kinds of stuff for me, would never let me pay for dates even though I was making very good money for my age. Wanted to take me on all kinds of trips around Asia. She bought me some very nice watches and clothes which I still have and cherish to this day. She had a Benz and an Aston Martin and some other cars just lying around in her parking spaces in the middle of Tokyo. Probably would have married her if it weren't for some complications with her marital status. I found out about that after a few weeks of dating. It was a bit of a tragedy really. It turned out she was in a terrible, loveless marriage and had a young child. I found out about that way after we'd already been going out a while. At first it made me uncomfortable to be in that situation, but I started to understand that she was trapped in it, and due to societal pressure she had no real way of divorcing. Neither of them wanted to continue their marriage and both of them were seeing other people, but due to their very high profile in the Japanese media, a divorce was out of the question. We ended up breaking up when we realized having a kid together would cause irreversible damage to her political career, and that a divorce to marry a white guy would be the end for her professionally. That really sucked, but it was the truth. She was the best girlfriend I've ever had. If I'd met her 3 years earlier, I'm sure my life would have been completely different now. Not for the money. Could not care less about that. I've never met someone I connected with so well. Really the one that got away. A female friend of mine asked me if I'd be interested in becoming FWB, so we came to a mutual agreement and hung out a few times a week at my place. After the first week, she started bringing me food. The second week, she cleaned my kitchen. And by the third week, we were no longer just friends with benefits. A rebound girl I was seeing at the time offered to buy me a plane ticket to visit her in Hawaii on her vacation. Not exactly a sugar mama, but I have a second Tinder account with my age set to 40. In the bio I just straight up say I'm actually 23 and looking to have sex with older women. It has worked a surprising number of times with some very attractive MILFs and cougars. Till I should get a sugar mama, date a MILF, or just date older women in general. When I was 19 I dated a 35-year-old lady. She was not super rich herself, but her dad was, and she was very much a daddy's girl. Anyway, her dad was a realtor who made a ton of money by war profiteering. Essentially, rich people sell huge houses at a massive loss in unstable countries when they think conflict is getting too local. Her father would buy the home cheap, and if it survived the war he would turn around and sell them with huge margins after the conflict settled. That was his business. Anyway, he kept up with his rich clients and sold them vacation mansions in the States later on. Rich folk have such money to waste. He then paid his daughter, my girlfriend, $800 a month to check in on the client's mansions once a month or so to make sure the mansion hadn't burned down or something. Keep in mind his clients lived in Dubai, London and never came to their vacation home in the States a single time in 20 plus years despite spending all of the money to get them furnished and everything. So me and my girlfriend would go to the mansion and just sleep in the mansion for a while sometimes. I've known other well-off people, but to this day I have not set foot in another home as huge as that ducking mansion. Their master bathroom had a separate room where the entire ceiling would shower water. 50 people could all shower at the same time in there. I got to shower in there by myself on several occasions. When I was 19 in college, a trans woman offered to pay all of my bills for the month if I let her suck my D. I wish I was into it because that's a pretty sweet deal. My mom, who works as a massage therapist, told me her boss, 42, at her spa thought I, 19, at the time, was hot when my mom showed her pictures of me. Ended up getting an ad on Facebook from her, and she told me to come down to the downtown spa where she worked at during her lunch break. Got an hour massage, crazy sex on the table, $50 and a Chipotle burrito. My time has come. I met an older MILF when I was 27, she was 43, and I think it was really more of a boy toy situation, though we were still friends. She would basically take me all around the state on her trips as a sales rep, when I had the days off from my own job, and we'd stay at hotels and just duck half the night. Then we'd wake up, duck again, and be on our way. It lasted for just over a year, and honestly, I was just so spoiled by her in terms of sex. She loved to duck out in nature, and before it ended, we had ducked in 3 national parks. We even had a thing where we'd impersonate the count with 2 national parks. And then laugh like idiots. I used to tutor this dumb as a rock high school girl in math, and I always tried to quit because it was so frustrating and not worth the money. Her mom used to convince me to stay via a hand job. In my early 20s I met an older woman around mid 40s in a bar. She was drinking alone and I stood by her to order a drink. She leaned over and gave me all kinds of compliments about my body. I said thanks and that she looked great too. She gave me her business card, realtor, and told me to text her around 2 AM. I did. She rolled up to my place in a super nice Benz. Woke up and she was gone. Next weekend she texted me an address and to be there at 8 PM and to clear my entire weekend for her. I did. She had a really nice 8-bedroom house. She was wild. Taught me a thing or two and let me explore all kinds of it I didn't even know I was interested in. The next weekend, same thing. She showed up and she had so much stuff for me. Really nice high-end clothes and shoes. She also bought all kinds of kinky toys for me to use on her too. She made me into a half-assed dom and I would tide her up and do just about anything I wanted to. We had a good time. Then she fell off the face of the earth. I don't regret it one bit. She was really nice and spoiled the it out of me. She made me food and would bring it to me while I was in bed. massaged my body damn near every day. She would sleep in a different room, and between the sexual times we would have long lengthy conversations about anything and everything. A while back I posted in a couple subreddits here for meetups, and a woman actually messaged me. We connected pretty well, and found out a job took her around the US. She also was in a poly relationship, and just liked having guy friends everywhere. So I just became another one of her boyfriends. When we started talking it was about 2-3 weeks away from my birthday, and I had told her it was coming up soon. She wanted to get me something for it, but I had felt uncomfortable telling her my address. Finally she convinced me, and about a week later, she sent me an incredible care package. It was 2 brand new games, a new hoodie, some comics, and a Funko Pop. It was a lot to spend on me even though we hadn't known each other that well. Former teacher 10 years later. I bought my husband's beer last night. I briefly dated a MILF and quite frankly it was great. She would expect me once a week with a fridge full of beer, homemade food and dessert and all the 6 I could have. Dump her to give my ex another chance. It failed. Well, to be fair, there were other reasons. MILF got too attached and I didn't want to hurt her, but that was the main one. Once during supper, I asked my mother to pass me the salt and she passed me the sugar by accident. I went to a bar one time and this cougar kept ordering pitchers of beer for me. One thing led to another and I went home to her place. Woke up the following morning to find out she was an E7 and I was a E4. Fast forward to later in the relationship. She told me that she wanted to get engaged before she left for her next duty station. I agreed, so we went to a jewelry store. She picked out a ring and asked me if I wanted an engagement present too. I picked out a fancy watch and she paid for everything. 2 days later she changed her mind about the engagement and decided she wanted to be single. At least I got to keep the watch. I'm the sugar mama. For his birthday I took him to a music festival with his favorite lineup. Stayed a week at the Venetian in Vegas and got him an hour in a Lamborghini Huracan on a racetrack. It was fun. Met her when I was 22. She worked 2 shifts a week at work and suggested going to a movie. I was flattered and jumped at the chance. Afterwards we went to her apartment and had the most awesome 6 of my young life. Next day, more of the same. Within a week, she suggested I move some of my stuff in, no need to pay rent. Her mom and dad took care of that, and the car payments, and credit card bills. Eventually I found out her family owned thousands of acres of farmland, 3 radio stations, and a television station. After a few weeks, the 6 got less and less, and she began spending more time out with her girlfriends. Guys would come by too, guys wearing colors and riding Harleys. Slowly the truth started coming out. She was gay. The women were her rich girlfriends and drug clients. The bikers were her drug dealers. She needed a man to live with her to keep her rich, extremely conservative family from guessing that she liked women and cutting her off from her money. Feeling like I'd been lied to and gaslighted, I moved out after a month and ghosted her. Signed into my old just to comment on this. I'm currently in an FWB type thing with an older woman. I'm 23, she's 37, with some sugar mama elements to it, mostly that she buys me nice dinners and drinks and I give her a good time in bed playing a Switch. We met on Bumble. She says she wasn't originally looking at guys my age, but her friend messed with the age thing without telling her and she matched with me. She's a professor researcher and I'm a grad student, not her student, but in a similar field at the same university, so we have a lot in common. She didn't actually realize I was that much younger until we'd already been texting for a while and had a date planned. But she went through with it anyway and the sexual tension was there from the start. I was pretty nervous the first time, but she has some dominant tendencies, especially in bed, so I think she found it cute. We ducked 4 times that night and haven't slowed down much since. We aren't exclusive or anything. She goes out with other guys her age and I go out with other girls my age. She actually encourages it. She even likes hearing me talk about whenever I get laid with a younger girl. It's kind of a crazy whirlwind thing, especially since I was a virgin less than a year ago. But it's fun. Would highly recommend. Although I feel like if I ever get famous or run for office or anything, it's going to get found out somehow and scandalize my entire extended family to death. Edit. To clarify, I mean playing a Switch in the DOM subsense, not in the sense of playing on the Nintendo system. Please let this thread explode on Mayo. I wanna read these stories. I was sitting at the Hilton Dubai resort and this older lady who has clearly had plastic surgery was sitting in a chair, possibly in a thong. Soon her husband, a 20-something muscular Indian guy in speedos, shows up with a drink and a horse, so she could go riding later. I don't have a specific story, but this was my father apparently when he was young. My grandmother told me how he would always go out with women twice his age. It was such a regular thing, I guess, that after date she'd just go, so how old is she this time? Many years later and after my mother's passing. Ironically, she was only 3 years older than him. He's still doing it. He's in his 50s and his lower limit is the 70s. And he ain't messing with no broke to broke either. Went on a date with a girl visiting from NY. Didn't see the point as I was looking for a relationship. Had a good time. Wasn't doing well at the time. So she flew me out to New York and paid for everything. And so forth. She flew back a few times. Became clear she was emotionally unbalanced. Sweet girl and I wish her the best. I've been working at a restaurant for over a year and a half now, and the same elderly couple comes in at least 3 times per week. They're both probably in their 70s at least. The woman is always in nice fur coats and has different jewelry all the time, but is kind of losing herself to her age. I don't think she has dementia quite yet, but she's not quite all there anymore. The man is constantly leading her around, walking her to their regular booth, helping her order, etc. Found out recently the poor old guy lives in his car. Basically this woman pays for him to have a few meals with her each week in exchange for his companionship. It's kind of like a weird elderly escort deal they've got going on. It's sad, but in a weird way kind of sweet, as I've noticed he gets very protective over her and seems to genuinely care for her. He keeps all of her receipts for her, makes sure she gets exactly what she wants, and always makes sure she gets her 1.5 scoops of vanilla ice cream for dessert. How the guy survives living mostly in his car in Minnesota winters is probably solely due to help from this woman. TLDR. Elderly couple eats together all the time. Lady is rich off and basically pays for his companionship and company. Had a huge crush on my friend's hippie mom for years when I was a teen. She knew some things you can't just hide all the time. Boners. Went to their house one day after work, but my friend wasn't home. Ended up secretly hooking up with his mom for a few months. It wasn't a financial sugar mama, but all the sex and pot a teenager could hope for. I posted the story a while back. I met a girl at a club in Ibiza. We're both Americans, and ended up spending the night with her. We didn't even actually duck BC, neither of us had optimal spaces to go back to for the night, but lots of heavy petting, as my mom would say, and stayed up to watch the sunrise on the beach. She revealed to me later that she was in her mid-30s. Did not look it. I was only 21. In the morning I realized I had lost my phone, which had my debit card in it as well. She helped me call my bank in America and cancel my card, and insisted I stay with her at her nice ass hotel for the day and enjoy the pool, buying me drinks all day and even letting me borrow a swimsuit. Did I mention that I'm also female? Lol, our surplus are lesbians. She eventually gave me 50 euros to get back to my more than enough, and offered to fly me out to LA where she's from if I was ever up for it. She then asked for my address back home and ended up sending me a $150 Visa gift card to replace my lost phone. We didn't keep in touch, but more than a year later I still wonder if she would still fly me out if I hit her up. Don't have one yet, but this girl I recently became FWB with asked me to be her formal date in Las Vegas, and I don't have to pay for anything. She's got the flights, hotels and even booze. She told me it's part of our FWB contract. This is happening in February. Wish me luck. I've ducked the woman who's conducted my pit orchestra. We had all gone out for drinks, and over a game of Never Have I Ever, I let her know I was interested in her. Couple days later, and we're going at it like rabbits on her couch. Currently working on doing it again. He got expensive gifts all the time, was always going to fancy restaurants, and she let him drive her luxury sedan around whenever he wanted. Plus he got to stay at her swanky apartment rent free. Cons? I don't think there were any for him. He came and went as he pleased. She wasn't particularly controlling. If anything, she was very sweet, and she was very attractive. If I could get a deal like that, I'd be foolish not to jump on it. Edit. Should add why they broke up. He crashed her Mercedes. She stopped letting him drive her car, and he cheated on her. It was a messy breakup and my friend is an asshole. I had a girl give me an iMac because she liked me and we played video games together. We had never really met up until that point. She was sad my laptop was dying, so she gave me her old iMac. Most expensive and nicest gift I was ever given. Felt like a sugar mama. Back in my broke college days, a girl that liked me was a manager at McDonald's. It started out with me getting a discount and eventually turned into her bringing me free food every night when she got off work. At the same time, my current wife was a cashier at Walmart. I would go through her line and she would only scan a few of my cheaper items. I would get $200 worth of stuff for like $40. The next year she paid for a trip to Vegas together. We've been together for 23 years now. I'm a 40-year woman and this is my dream, especially after reading all these stories. If I had money, this is exactly what I need. I want a friendly, casual, sexual relationship. I guess there is hope, lol. An ex-geisha that owned a whiskey place wanted to give me a job. The old guys I was drinking with told me that if I accept she will give me a lot of presents and money. So I will look pretty behind the bar and basically pour drinks and talk to people and sleep with her. She was probably 80. She called me almost daily after I told her I would think it over. I was looking for a job at the time. I got a lame ass but pays well teaching job instead. She got angry on the phone and hung up. My friend earns really good money and works for a government organization in a poor country, so she barely needs to spend anything. She's 33 and just likes younger guys, maybe around 21-25. She said it's because she enjoys the power aspect of it and she doesn't mind paying them or spoiling them because for her, it's a power play. Works for her.